The first time I ever saw snow was with Tessa. She laughed when I said that. Said it was criminal for a guy who grew up in Utah to hit 26 without ever skiing. You work too much, she always told me. She wasn't wrong. I'd been grinding since I was 19, picking up any shift I could as an apprentice, then licensed, then subcontracted electrician. I loved the work, but I loved her more. My name's Leon. I'm 26, from Ogden, Utah, and this was supposed to be the biggest week of my life. We were at her family's ski lodge up in Deer Valley for the holidays, and I had a plan. A big one. I'd been squirreling away cash for 6 months, cutting every corner I could. Packed lunches, no nights out. No new tools even though my old drill bit set was half rust. Also, I could afford a ring that wouldn't look like it came from a vending machine. I kept it tucked in my boot bag the whole trip. New Year's Eve was going to be the night. Her family was doing a big dinner at the lodge's private dining room. There'd be champagne and that cheesy countdown music, and I imagined getting down on one knee as the snow started falling outside. Tessa would say yes, cry a little, and her family, well, they'd finally have to take me seriously. Her dad, Carl, was okay. Stoic kind of guy, but he'd shake my hand and ask questions about wiring like he genuinely wanted to know. Her little brother, Finn, was a riot, always cracking jokes and way too into snowboarding. I liked him. It was Delia, Tessa's mom, who made things hard. She never said it straight out, but I knew how she felt about me. Blue collar, she once said, like it was a diagnosis. At Thanksgiving, she asked if I'd ever thought about going to school for something better. I smiled and bit my tongue. I didn't have the pedigree she wanted for her daughter. No degree, no family name, just a pair of calloused hands and a stable paycheck. So I thought maybe if I showed her I really cared, really respected this family, I could change her mind. I'd gone out of my way this trip. Bought gifts for each of them. A vintage fly reel for Carl, he loves fishing, some hand-tied lures for Finn, the kid would fish in a puddle if he could, and a soft cashmere scarf for Delia. I knew her favorite color. Navy. We just finished skiing the morning runs on the 30th, and I caught Delia alone in the lodge lounge. She was sipping one of those ridiculous herbal teas with flower petals in it. I found something I think you'll like, I said, pulling the wrapped scarf from my jacket. Thought it might come in handy tonight. Gets chilly fast when the sun dips. She opened it slowly, too slowly, like she already knew she wouldn't be impressed. She turned the scarf over once, then folded it and placed it on the table beside her. It's thoughtful, she said, and gave me a tight smile. Thank you. That was it. No warmth, no surprise. Just polite dismissal. But I kept trying, because Tessa was worth it. Back in our shared room that evening, I pulled the ring from its hiding place under my clothes and looked at it. Simple but beautiful, white gold with a small cluster of diamonds, nothing flashy. I practiced what I'd say. Something about how I wanted to build a life with her, wire it from the ground up, no short circuits. She'd laugh at that. God, I hoped she'd laugh. I was 2 days from proposing. In my mind, everything was lined up. Snow, fireworks, family, love. I truly thought I was on the edge of being folded into something bigger. Something I'd always wanted. A family. I didn't know yet that someone had already made plans to keep me out. I remember the room was too warm. The fire was going full blast, and someone had made mulled wine that smelled like cinnamon and cloves. There was laughter, the sound of wrapping paper tearing, and that low murmur of a family that knew each other too well. I sat on the edge of the rug, watching Carl unwrap the fly reel I'd picked out for him. He gave a quiet nod and said, "Nice weight. This is solid, Leon." I felt a little beam of pride inside. Delia unwrapped her scarf next. Again, Tessa had rewrapped it for the gift exchange like it hadn't come from me earlier. She pulled it from the box with a look of rehearsed surprise. "Oh, a scarf," she said, like she was narrating an infomercial. "How perfect." Then she folded it back into the box. Not even a thank you this time. Finn was sitting cross-legged near the tree, his hair a mess and a candy cane sticking out of his mouth. He looked jittery, not his usual hyper kind of jittery. More like he was trying not to throw up. I figured he'd had too much eggnog or maybe he was hungover from sneaking beer again. Then he stood up suddenly. "Hey, Leon, can I talk to you for a sec?" He was already walking toward the hallway before I answered. "Sure, man," I said, glancing at Tessa. She was halfway through opening a bracelet from her dad, not paying me any attention. I followed Finn down the hall past the guest rooms. Carl trailed behind us after a moment, carrying his glass of bourbon and looking concerned. We stopped in one of the smaller sitting rooms with the heavy curtains drawn. Finn shut the door. He didn't waste time. Okay, he said, rubbing his face like he was trying to rip it off. Dude, I shouldn't even be saying anything. I promised Tessa I wouldn't, but I can't keep it in anymore. What's going on? I asked, confused, my hands in my hoodie pocket. You okay? Carl walked in then, closing the door softly. Finn swallowed hard. You guys remember when Tessa and I got back from New York last month? She said she had the flu. Yeah, I said slowly, trying to follow. She didn't, Finn said, dropping his voice. I found something in her drawer. It was just sitting there. A sonogram photo. I blinked. A what? Carl's face tightened like he already knew. Finn kept talking fast. Like a pregnancy scan. With her name on it. Dated 3 weeks ago. I felt my body lock up. That doesn't make sense. I thought it was yours, Finn said quickly. I did. I didn't want to get in the middle of anything, but I figured you guys were just keeping it quiet or something. But then, he looked at Carl, like asking permission to go on. Say it, Carl said, grim. Finn nodded. Then I overheard Mom talking to Aunt Molly about it. She said it was a good match. That the bridge club lady's son was such an upgrade. That she's glad Tessa finally came to her senses. My mouth went dry. What the hell are you talking about? Carl sat down in the armchair, rubbing his forehead. Leon. I didn't know. I swear to you. I only found out about this situation a few days ago. I didn't want to believe it. Wait, I said, backing up. Are you saying Tessa's pregnant, and it's not mine? And Delia set her up with some guy. I think it was months ago, Finn said, near tears now. Some dinner party with rich people. Tessa didn't say much, but she kept hanging out with this guy after. And I guess one thing led to another. She said she was confused. That you and her were in a rough spot back then. But, Leon, she's still seeing him. My heart was in my throat. I couldn't move. I just kept hearing those words again. You don't really fit the vibe. Carl stood up and looked me straight in the eye. I'm sorry, son. I didn't raise her to be dishonest. I sure as hell didn't raise her to treat someone like this. Especially not someone who's been trying harder than anyone to be part of this family. I shook my head. So she was going to let me propose? Let me embarrass myself in front of all of you. Finn's face crumpled. She said she wasn't ready to talk about it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to hurt you. Too late for that. I sat down on the edge of the couch, breathing hard. My ears were ringing. The box with the ring felt like it was burning in my bag back in the bedroom. She let me buy gifts. Let me plan the dinner, I said softly. I was going to get down on one knee and ask her to be my wife. And all this time. I should have told you sooner, Finn said, tears brimming. I'm so sorry, man. Carl put a hand on my shoulder. You don't owe her anything now. You don't owe us anything. But that wasn't how it felt. In that moment, everything that had built up in my chest, every quiet insult, every cold smile, every time I bit my tongue because I thought it would earn me a seat at the table, it all cracked open. I stood up slowly. I'm leaving. Finn looked up. What? Wait. I'm not doing this. I'm not playing polite. I'm not letting her humiliate me in front of people who already think I'm not good enough. Carl nodded solemnly. We understand. I'm not saying goodbye, I said. You can tell her whatever you want. That I found out. That I'm gone. That she lost the guy who actually gave a damn. I walked out of that room and never looked back. I left just after midnight. Didn't even pack. Just grabbed my wallet, my keys, and the duffel I kept in the car with some extra clothes and my tool bag. The ring was still in my jacket pocket. I should have tossed it into the snow, but I couldn't make myself do it yet. I drove for hours, didn't stop until I hit a rest area outside Salt Lake. I sat in the car with the heat cranked and stared at the steering wheel until the sun came up. Back home, my apartment was cold and dusty. I'd barely been there lately, always staying at Tessa's or out on a job site. I sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing my winter jacket, and called my mom. Leon? Honey, it's almost 6 in the morning. Are you okay? No, I said. But I'm safe. Just, something happened. I didn't even make it halfway through the story before she was already furious. My older brother wanted to drive up to the lodge right then. My sister kept asking if I wanted her to come over. They all rallied so fast, I didn't even have to ask. I hadn't realized how badly I needed that until I heard their voices. That first week back, I didn't return any calls from Tessa. She started with voicemails, then emails, then long texts, paragraphs and paragraphs, all the usual stuff. We need to talk. It's not what it looks like. Please give me a chance to explain. I didn't read half of them. I deleted everyone without replying. Next, it was photos. A blurry one of us from a beach trip last summer. A selfie from her birthday when I took her to that overpriced fondue place in Park City. One with Finn, smiling with whipped cream on his nose. That one almost broke me. But I turned my phone off instead. I changed my number a few days later. At work, I told my boss I wanted as many hours as I could get. Nights, weekends, emergency calls. I didn't care. I'd rather be on a freezing roof fixing floodlights than stuck at home thinking about the New Year's dinner that never happened. About the proposal that never was. My world shrank into wires, breakers, and concrete walls. The guys on the crew didn't ask too many questions, which I was grateful for. Just the occasional, "You good, man?" or a pat on the back when I looked like I hadn't slept. I stopped checking Instagram, deleted Facebook, disconnected completely. I didn't want to see any updates, any tagged photos, anything that might show me she was still smiling somewhere. But that's the thing, they never stopped trying to reach me. Her cousin Gina emailed me one day at my work address. Said she was heartbroken for me and that Tessa made a huge mistake. I deleted it without replying. Finn tried to reach me through an old Xbox account. Sent a friend request with a message. "I'm so sorry. Please don't disappear." But I couldn't open that door. Not yet. A week turned into a month. The snow thawed, and I threw myself into wiring a new strip mall on the south end of town. Every day, sunrise to dark, I climbed scaffolding, dragged conduit through beams, and made small talk with drywall guys. Nobody knew what had happened. I didn't wear it on my sleeve. Just kept my head down. Some nights, though, I'd sit on my tiny balcony with a beer and stare at the skyline, wondering what Tessa was doing. If she'd told that guy, the more appropriate one, about the pregnancy. If she ever really meant to say yes to me, or if she was just waiting until the time was right to drop me. I don't know which hurt more, the betrayal or the idea that I never really knew her. One night, I finally took the ring out of my jacket pocket. It still looked beautiful, even under the yellow streetlight. I thought about selling it, but I wasn't ready to see it go just yet. Instead, I put it in the back of my toolbox, tucked behind old bits and a half-dead flashlight. Out of sight. After that, something shifted. I started eating better. Slept a little more. Called my sister to grab tacos after work. My mom came by with soup on Sundays like I was 12 again. They never pushed, never asked for details, just kept showing up. It took everything I had not to break down in front of them. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the fiery way. I was just hollow. Like someone had scooped out my insides and left the shell behind. But I knew one thing for sure. Tessa could cry, explain, beg, whatever she wanted. It didn't matter. I was done. She made her choice. Now I was making mine. It was a Saturday morning in early spring when I found out. The kind of morning where the sun pretends it's warmer than it really is. I was at my brother's place helping him rewire his garage when he pulled out his phone and said, "You seen this?" I looked over, not really in the mood for drama. Seen what? He handed me his phone, open to a screenshot of a Facebook post. It was Tessa, holding a newborn. Her face pale, her hair tied back in a messy bun. The caption was short. "Welcome to the world, baby Eli. Just us two now. Always and forever. Just us two." I stared at the photo for a long time. The baby was wrapped in a blue hospital blanket, red-faced and squirming. No tag of the father. No balloons, no proud dad leaning into the frame. Just Tessa, looking exhausted and alone. "Guess the more appropriate guy split," my brother muttered. I handed him the phone back and picked up the wire cutters again. Looks that way. But I couldn't focus after that. My hands kept slipping. My mind was spinning. I didn't feel angry. I didn't even feel sad. I felt confirmed. Like someone finally handed me the proof that leaving had been the only choice. Later that week, one of my old high school buddies texted out of nowhere. "Dude, Tessa's been asking around about you. She messaged my cousin. Said she's trying to get your new number." I didn't answer. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I did. She'd been circling, dropping hints through friends, sending signals through mutuals who didn't even know we were broken up. I guess she figured if she got close enough to someone I still trusted, I'd eventually cave. Then, a few days later, I got the text. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Tessa. Leon. Please. Just hear me out. I know you don't want to talk to me, but please." He left. He's not in the picture. I was wrong. I was stupid. I didn't know what I was doing. But I need you. I need help. I can't do this alone. I stared at it for a long time. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I even typed out a few things and deleted them. Then I finally wrote back. Me. You made your choices. I'm not your lifeboat. Less than a minute later, she responded. Tessa. I know. I know I messed everything up. But I'm scared. I'm so sorry, Leon. I should have told you everything the second it happened. I panicked. My mom. That was where I stopped reading. Her mom. Of course, Delia was still in the picture. Still pulling strings. Still whispering poison into her daughter's ear. I could see it so clearly. The way she convinced Tessa to meet someone better. The way she'd smiled tight every time I opened my mouth. The way she probably spun the whole thing like I'd overreacted by leaving. I sat down on my couch, phone in my lap, heart pounding with a kind of calm rage I hadn't felt since that night in the lodge. I knew what I had to say, and I knew I'd only say it once. Me. You had someone who loved you, who wanted to build a life with you, who bent over backwards to make your family like him. You let your mom ruin that. You let yourself ruin it. You lied. And now you want me to what? Step in and clean up the mess? I'm sorry for your kid, but this isn't my problem. You burned this bridge. Live with the ashes. No reply came after that. Not for hours. Not for days. I thought maybe that was it. Maybe she got the message. But a week later, I got one final photo. Her holding the baby again, sitting on her couch, dark bags under her eyes. I never wanted to do this alone, the caption said. I didn't respond. I looked at the picture for a long time, then tapped delete and tossed my phone face down on the counter. I wasn't a cruel person. I didn't take joy in her pain. I didn't laugh or feel smug or think, serves you right. But I also didn't feel guilt. Not anymore. I'd spent too long apologizing for who I was. Too long twisting myself into shapes that fit her family's mold. And in the end, none of it mattered. Because to them, I was never enough. So now? Now, I was done carrying weight that didn't belong to me. Mother's Day came around faster than I expected. I'd almost forgotten about it until my sister Jody called and said, "You're not weaseling out of brunch this year." I laughed. Wouldn't dream of it. We took Mom to this lakeside cafe just outside Provo. One of those places with too many plants inside and artisanal everything. Jody made the reservation, Mom dressed up in her Sunday best, and I shaved for the first time in a month. It felt good. Normal. Like life had finally quieted down. We were halfway through the meal, Mom talking about some new show she was binging, Jody stealing bites off my plate, when the door jingled behind me. I didn't need to turn around to know. I felt the air change, like someone had dropped a weight into the room. My mom's face stiffened mid-sentence. Jody's eyes flicked over my shoulder, then narrowed. I turned slowly. Delia. And Finn. She was wearing a long beige coat and oversized sunglasses, like someone important. Finn trailed a step behind her, hands in his pockets, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Our eyes met. Delia froze. I expected her to turn around. Walk out. Pretend she didn't see me. But no. She stared. Her mouth opened slightly, then shut. And then, just for a second, her eyes landed on Jody, and something shifted. Her face twitched. Like a flicker of confusion, then something darker. I saw it click in her head. That was the same expression she had months ago, back at the lodge. When she saw me laughing with Jody by the fire. When she stiffened and pulled Tessa away for girl talk not 10 minutes later. And that's when it hit me. She thought Jody was someone else. Someone not my sister. She thought I was cheating. The realization must have been visible on my face, because Delia's nostrils flared and she looked down quickly, flustered. She grabbed Finn's arm and said something under her breath. But Finn didn't move. He looked at me, then back at her, and shook his head. Then he walked toward our table. Jody raised her eyebrows but didn't say anything. Mom just gave a soft, and took another sip of her coffee like she didn't see a thing. Leon, Finn said, stopping by the corner of our table. Hey, man. I kept my tone neutral. He scratched the back of his neck. You mind if we talk? Just for a sec. Outside. I looked at my mom, who gave me a subtle nod. Jody pushed her chair back and said, I'll box the rest of yours up. Outside, the sun was bright but not warm. We walked a few steps toward the lake before Finn finally stopped. She thought Jody was your girlfriend, he said, staring out at the water. Back in December. That night at the lodge. That's why she hated you. I blinked. What? That's the story she told Tessa, he said. That she saw you getting too close with some other woman. Thought you were messing around behind Tessa's back. She never even asked who Jody was. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Bitter and sharp. You're serious? He nodded. Jesus, I muttered. So all this, Delia's little campaign to sabotage our relationship, it started with her mistaking my sister for a side chick? I didn't know, Finn said quickly. I swear I didn't know until after you left. I started putting it together when Delia was talking to Aunt Molly and said something about how she always knew you were shady, that you had no morals, that no daughter of hers was going to marry a man who cheats. I rubbed my face, exhaling hard. Unbelievable. I tried telling her she was wrong, that she never even gave you a chance. She just dug in deeper. Started pushing Tessa toward that guy from the bridge club. Made it sound like you were using Tessa for a seat at the table. I didn't need a seat, I snapped. I just wanted to be with her. I know, he said, quietly. We all saw it. Everyone but her. There was a long pause. She's really struggling, Finn added. Tessa, I mean, she's exhausted. She's got nobody. And I'm not saying that to guilt you. I don't know. I wish it hadn't ended this way. I looked out over the lake. It was glassy, untouched. People were laughing on a nearby trail. Life was moving on, with or without us. I get it, I said finally. But I'm not coming back. I don't care what Delia thinks anymore. I don't care what stories she spun. If Tessa believed it without asking, that's on her. Finn nodded, slowly. I miss you, man, he said, barely audible. I didn't answer. I just gave him a short pat on the shoulder and turned to head back inside. Finn caught up to me just before I opened the cafe door. Wait, he said, his voice tight. Can I just tell you something else? Real quick. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to shut the door in his face and go finish my pancakes. But there was something in his expression and urgency that felt too raw to ignore. Make it quick, I said, leaning against the doorframe. He exhaled, stuffing his hands in his hoodie pockets. Okay. So, remember how I told you Delia thought you were cheating with Jody? Yeah, I said, already feeling the headache coming on. Well, it wasn't just that. That's how it started. But the real reason she went nuclear wasn't because she thought you cheated. It was because she thought you cheated and Tessa was going to forgive you. I blinked. Come again. She was already pissed when she saw you two laughing by the fireplace that night, Finn said, glancing toward the lake behind us. She told Tessa she saw you flirting with another woman, that you were shameless about it. But Tessa didn't bite right away. She just said, that's his sister. He told me she was coming. I stared at him. So Tessa did tell her you were with your sister? Yeah, Finn nodded. But Delia didn't believe it. Or didn't want to. She said it was just a cover story. That you were lying. And when Tessa said she trusted you, that she wasn't going to bring it up unless she had proof, Delia flipped. She got this weird look and said, fine, if she won't see the truth, I'll show her what a real man looks like. I didn't say anything. My jaw was locked so tight it hurt. That's when she started pushing her friend's son, he went on. Evan or Eric, whatever his name was. She invited him to family dinners. Kept telling Tessa she deserved someone respectable. Someone who fit in. So the pregnancy, I trailed off. Finn nodded again, eyes full of regret. I think it happened not long after that. Tessa told me she felt trapped. Confused. She didn't even like the guy that much, but Delia kept getting in her head. Made her feel like being with you was some embarrassing phase. I swallowed hard. My throat felt like sandpaper. You know what's wild? Finn said, shaking his head. Delia was so sure she was right. So convinced you were some scammer just playing nice to get in with the family. But you weren't. You were the only one being real. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Just once. It came out bitter and hollow. All this, I said, waving vaguely toward the parking lot, the lake, the whole goddamn story. All this crap started because she saw me sitting next to my own sister and decided it was a scandal? Finn grimaced. Yeah. I looked up at the sky. Clear blue. Not a cloud in sight. She ever apologize? To Tessa? No. She just doubled down, said she did what she had to do to protect her daughter from a mistake. And what about you? I asked. Do you still live at home? Not anymore, Finn said. After everything blew up, I moved in with a friend. Carl. He's been real quiet lately. I think he's tired. He doesn't say much, but I don't think he's siding with her anymore. I nodded slowly. You know, I said after a long pause, I spent months wondering what I did wrong, what I missed. Thought maybe if I'd worn a nicer coat, or gone to college, or... I don't know. Pretended to be something I'm not. You didn't miss anything, Finn said quietly. She just built a lie in her head and committed to it. No matter how stupid it was. Well, I said, straightening up, at least now I know the truth. Finn gave a faint smile. Does it help? No, I said, but it makes me a hell of a lot less sad about walking away. I opened the cafe door and stepped inside. The bell jingled softly behind me. Some mistakes, I thought, were built on bad choices. But others? They were built on something even worse, deliberate, petty ignorance. Delia hadn't just destroyed my relationship with Tessa. She destroyed it with a lie that could have been fixed in a 10-second conversation. And now? Now, there was nothing left to fix. It was supposed to be a simple favor. Finn texted and asked if I could take a look at his busted laptop. Said it wouldn't boot up, and all his schoolwork was stuck on it. Part of me wanted to ignore the message, but another part, maybe the part that still saw him as the one person who tried to do the right thing, told me to say yes. We met at a diner on the west end of town. Low-key, old-school booths, the kind of place where nobody cared if you wore work boots or a designer coat. Finn was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table near the back with a brown backpack at his feet. Carl sat beside him, sipping black coffee and watching the front door. "Hey," I said, sliding into the booth across from them. "Hey," Finn said, giving me a small, hopeful smile. Carl nodded. "Leon." I pulled the laptop from the bag and got to work while we made small talk. It was nothing major, just a corrupt boot file. I told Finn I could probably fix it with a USB drive and about 30 minutes of patience. He looked relieved, like it was the first good news he'd heard in weeks. The waitress brought over our food, burgers, fries, nothing fancy, and we were halfway through eating when the door jingled. I didn't have to look up. I felt it before I saw her. Tessa. She was thinner than I remembered. Paler. Her long dark hair was tied back into a messy ponytail, and she wore no makeup, just tired eyes and a coat that looked too big for her. She spotted us instantly and made a beeline for our table. Finn froze. Carl straightened in his seat, face unreadable. Tessa stopped just shy of the table. "Leon," she said, her voice shaking. "Can I talk to you?" I set down my burger and wiped my hands. "About what?" "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "Just come outside." 2 minutes. Carl sighed. "Maybe we should give you two some space." "No," I said calmly. "She can say whatever she needs to say right here." She hesitated, then slowly slid into the booth next to Carl, facing me. Her eyes brimmed with tears immediately, like she'd been saving them for this exact moment. "I messed everything up," she said, voice trembling. "I know that. I should have told you the truth from the beginning. About the guy. About the pregnancy. About everything." I said nothing. She looked at me like she wanted me to rescue her. The same way she used to look when her car wouldn't start or she couldn't open a jar. But this time, I didn't move. "He left," she continued. "He left me as soon as he found out I was keeping the baby. Said it wasn't what he signed up for. And my mom, God, my mom, she acts like it's my fault. Like I ruined everything." Carl looked down at the table, jaw tight. "I'm alone," Tessa whispered. "I haven't slept in weeks. I don't have any help. I'm trying to be strong, but I don't know how long I can keep going like this." "I'm sorry you're struggling," I said, keeping my voice even. "But that's not my problem anymore." Her eyes went wide. "Leon, come on. You loved me. You said you wanted a life with me." "I did," I said, "until you burned it down." Tessa's voice rose slightly. "I was scared. My mom was in my ear every day. She told me you were cheating. She made me think you didn't really love me. And I was stupid enough to believe her. But I know better now. I do. You believed what you wanted to believe," I said. "That I wasn't good enough. That the guy from your mom's country club circle made more sense. That I was just the electrician with dirty hands and no pedigree." Tessa's lip trembled. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did," I said. "And you didn't just hurt me. You lied to me. You let me plan a proposal while carrying another man's kid. You let me buy gifts for your family. You smiled in my face every day knowing the truth." She opened her mouth, but I kept going. "You think being alone now is a punishment?" I asked. "You think I'm going to sweep in and save you from the mess you made? I'm not your plan B. I'm not a consolation prize." Tears ran down her cheeks now, full and fast. "He doesn't even ask about the baby. I don't know how to do this by myself." I looked at her for a long moment, not with anger, just a cold, hard clarity. "You should have thought about that before you cheated, before you lied, before you let your mom whisper poison into your ear and pushed away the one person who actually gave a damn about you." Carl cleared his throat, quietly pushing his coffee cup aside. Tessa reached across the table, but I pulled back. "No," I said firmly. This is the end of the road." She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "So that's it. That was it the day I left the lodge, I said. Everything since then has just been noise. For a moment, all three of them were silent. Then Finn shifted awkwardly in his seat, looking down. Tessa stood slowly. Okay, she said, voice barely audible. I guess I deserve that. I nodded once. She walked out without another word. The door jingled behind her. I didn't watch her leave. I picked up my burger and took another bite. Carl leaned back in his seat, looking tired. You handled that better than I would have. I'm not angry anymore, I said. Just done. And I meant it. It started with a voicemail. I just wrapped up a job at a strip mall in Sandy, long day, bad wiring, and a stubborn circuit that wouldn't ground. I was peeling off my gloves when I saw the missed call. Delia. I hadn't heard her voice since the lodge. Curiosity got the better of me, and I hit play. Leon, she said, her voice sharp and cold, the kind of tone someone uses when they're still pretending they're not fuming. I don't know what fantasy you're living in, but abandoning Tessa and her child is not the noble act you seem to think it is. You could have helped. You could have fixed things. But no, you chose to disappear like a coward. And for what? A misunderstanding. She scoffed. You could have just corrected it. You could have told me that woman was your sister. But no, you let me believe a lie. You let this whole situation spiral. You think that makes you better than us? Newsflash, it doesn't. I stood there in the parking lot, stunned. Somehow, this woman had twisted everything again, turned her own baseless assumption into my failure. Then came the second part of the message, colder than the first. If you don't want to fix this privately, fine. But don't be surprised when I show up at your workplace. This isn't over. I deleted the message. Then I stood there for a minute, staring at my truck like it might drive me away before she could. 2 days later, she showed up. It was a Thursday morning, a slow one, and I was in the shop office with Chuck, our dispatcher, when I heard raised voices out front. At first, I thought a customer was upset. Then I heard her voice, loud, clipped, and unmistakable. I know he works here. I'm not leaving until I speak to him. Chuck looked at me like, is this really happening? I walked out calmly, wiping my hands on a rag. She was at the front counter, wearing a long camel coat and way too much perfume for a body shop. Her lips were pinched, arms folded across her chest like she was daring me to throw her out. There he is, she said. Finally. Delia, I said, keeping my voice level. You need to leave. I need you to stop acting like a child, she snapped. Tessa is drowning. You could help. You should help. But instead, you're hiding here like a scared little boy. The guys in the shop started looking over. Tyler, our tech apprentice, muttered, who the hell is that? I'm not hiding, I said. I'm working. Something you clearly don't understand. She leaned forward on the counter. You could have cleared everything up months ago. Told me that woman was your sister. Do you know how much pain you caused by keeping that from me? I laughed, couldn't help it. You mean the pain you caused by jumping to conclusions and blowing up your daughter's life over a lie you never even bothered to confirm? I was trying to protect her, she hissed. From a man who clearly had no place in our family. And now you're here, throwing a tantrum in my place of work, I said. What's the endgame, Delia? You think yelling at me in front of my crew is going to guilt me into stepping in? You think your crew cares? She spat. You're just the boss to them. They'll drop you in a second. That was when Chuck stepped forward, arms crossed. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Delia looked at him like he was a gnat. Tyler chimed in. Seriously. This is a business, not a soap opera. Leon, she said, her voice going up an octave. This isn't over. Yes, I said, looking her dead in the eye. It is. Chuck walked around the counter and opened the door. Out. Now. She huffed, turned sharply, and stormed out, her heels clacking on the concrete like gunshots. The guys watched through the window as she got into her SUV and peeled out of the lot like she was in a Fast and Furious movie. I stood there for a second, just breathing. Then Chuck patted me on the shoulder. You want to write her a help review, or should I? Tyler snorted. 1 star. Showed up, screamed about babies, didn't even buy tires. Everyone laughed, and the tension broke. That night, I finally told them the whole story. Not every little detail, but enough. About the lodge. The betrayal. The misunderstanding that wasn't mine to fix. About the woman who thought her daughter's life was a branding campaign, and saw me as a stain. To my surprise, they didn't treat me like some drama magnet. Chuck just nodded and said, family can be the worst. Tyler said, glad she's not mine. And that was that. No pity. No judgment. Just a bunch of guys who'd seen enough to know that sometimes, walking away wasn't weakness, it was survival. I sat in the back of the shop that evening, drinking a warm soda from the vending machine, and realized something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. I was free. No more games. No more twisted guilt. No more pretending I still owed anything to the people who'd tried to break me. Delia's tantrum wasn't a setback. It was my final confirmation that I'd made the right call. And I wasn't looking back. A couple weeks after Delia's meltdown at the shop, I got a text from Finn. Finn. Sorry about my mom. That was insane. I told her she crossed the line. Carl's furious. Might actually be talking to a divorce lawyer. I stared at the message for a while, not sure what to feel. I believed him. Carl never said much, but he wasn't the kind of man who forgave public humiliation easily. Still, the idea of their family falling apart didn't bring me any satisfaction. It just made me feel tired. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked out to the garage behind my apartment, where I kept the old toolbox I never brought to job sites anymore. The ring was still there, tucked in its little velvet box behind a row of spare fuses and wire nuts. I opened it one last time. It caught the light just enough to remind me of what I'd almost given away. I snapped it shut and tossed it into the donation bin I was taking to Goodwill the next day. Back inside, my mom and Jody were watching some game show and yelling answers at the screen. Leon, you want the last slice of pizza? Jody called from the couch. Nah, you take it. You sure? Mom added. You haven't eaten all day. I smiled. I'm good. Thanks. They didn't push. Just kept watching their show, laughing every few minutes. It was warm, it was peaceful, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Later that night, I sat on my balcony with a beer and scrolled through my contacts. Finn's name sat near the top. No new messages, just that last one about Delia and Carl. I tapped the thread, hovered over the keyboard. I missed him, in a quiet, aching way. The kid who always stuck his neck out for me. Who told the truth when nobody else would. But I also knew what came with keeping him in my life. The connection to everything I'd spent the last few months escaping. Delia wasn't going to stop. Tessa wouldn't either. As long as Finn had access to me, there'd be an open door. A leak. A tether. And I couldn't afford that anymore. I tapped edit, then delete contact. The name vanished. I exhaled slowly and took a long sip of my drink. It wasn't easy. Letting go never is. But sometimes, the healthiest choice is the one that hurts the most. My phone buzzed again, this time. A group text from my sister. Family dinner at my place this Sunday. Leon's bringing the beer. I smiled, typed back. Only if you're buying pizza. In the end, I didn't get the life I thought I was building. But I got something better. A clean slate. A real sense of peace. And the quiet understanding that not every love story ends in a wedding, but every ending can still be a beginning if you know when to walk away.